Joining us now is former presidential candidate, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor Huckabee, I find this really rich. I mean, you know, here's a guy who basically, in spying on Michael Flynn and then releasing that to the press, committed perjury right there, and that is a felony for what he did. And he also lacked candor himself. And apparently he was investigating concessions.
There's a statement, Maria, something about karma being, gee, I can't remember the rest of the phrase, but I would say that it applies here. It's just remarkable. I think it's fine that he wanted to take a look to see, was Jeff Sessions dishonest? But for all the people who are just crying big crocodile tears because Andrew McCabe got fired, my gosh, get over it. Andrew McCabe deserved to be fired according to the Office of Professional Responsibility. It wasn't Donald Trump who fired him. It was his own FBI organization who said he had to go.
Yeah.
And why should he get a pension if he violated the basic fundamental code of ethics that he supposedly clearly understood?
Yeah, I mean, we want to move on to the spending and your tweet earlier, but I find it really incredible that there are 1.2 million documents that the House Oversight and House Judiciary Committees have requested from the FBI, and they've only sent 3,000 documents. 3,000 documents. That's why they are subpoenaing those documents this week. But how does that happen? How do you blow off and stonewall the committees that have jurisdiction over you for so long?
Well, that's part of the problem when there's so much power that has been accumulated at the top of the FBI. And I think everybody tries to make the point, this isn't about the rank and file, this isn't about the organization, but this is about the leadership and the corruption that has so permeated that organization that they think they have the right to slow walk getting documents over to the Oversight Committee that they are constitutionally required to be accountable for.
Right.
It's absurd, and I'm glad Bob Dillard is saying, here's a subpoena.
Exactly.
Cough up the stuff.
But by the way, Jason Chaffetz tried that too, and they didn't get anywhere either. He remember when he interrupted a meeting and said, "You are served." But anyway, let me switch gears because Arkansas Congressman and House Budget Committee Chairman Steve Womack responded to your tweet. Your tweet called out Republicans about the federal spending bill, and you called it a disgusting bill. Just say no to Pelosi. Here's what he said earlier right here on the program.
And I was a mayor in a town of Arkansas when he was my governor.
Yeah, but
he was my commander-in-chief of the National Guard. He can say it's disgusting, and that's easy to say from the outside looking in. But as I said before, I believe strongly that we have a mandate to provide for the security of this country, and in order to be able to get the gains that we did for the Pentagon and for the national security apparatus, there were concessions that had to be made.
They needed to make concessions to pay for the military, Governor.
Well, look, Steve is a good friend, and I love him. He's a great congressman. But I'm going to just say this. Not one Republican in that body got elected to fund Planned Parenthood, not fund the border wall, give up for sanctuary cities, trash the Second Amendment. They were elected to go and do a job that stopped that kind of funding, but that did fund the military. So lay it on the table and tell the Democrats, we're going to fund the military, but we're not going to fund some of your pet projects. And you can either be the ones that keep us from having a strong military, or you can join us. And if you think that we're wrong, then you go get elected to the majorities. These guys have got to start learning to play some hardball. They have surrendered to Schumer and Pelosi and to a minority. And there is just no excuse for just giving up this quickly. And if the government has to shut down in order to push that point, then maybe that's what has to happen, and lay it around the necks of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Democrats who think that killing unborn children is more important than being able to preserve the borders and the security of the United States of America. That's what's at stake, and it's time for them to stand up and do what we sent them there to do. And if they can't, then get some more people and let them have a shot at it.
Governor Mitch Rochelle, one of the things when I talk to business leaders, I hear a lot of is fear about the midterm elections and how that could shift policy for the balance of this administration's first term. How could this budget issue play out in the midterms and be used as sort of fodder for beating up some Republican candidates?
I'll be very blunt. If the Republicans surrender on this bill and spend that kind of money on stuff that Republicans find immoral and just absolutely unacceptable, then Republicans will lose, and they will deserve to lose. We're going to have a lousy government under Democrats when Pelosi goes back in as Speaker, but it won't be the fault of the president, and it won't be the fault of rank-and-file Republicans. It'll be the fault of this Congress for not having the courage to stand up to these guys and say, we got elected. Why don't they just say what Obama did? Elections have consequences, and roll that tape over and over and over again, because I'll guarantee you the Democrats certainly didn't compromise with Republicans when they had the whole show.
Governor, you make some good points on policies that Washington shouldn't be funding, but isn't the big problem here also the overall level of spending?
Of course it is. Yeah, James, it is. And I think that's another issue that Republicans went to Congress to cut this runaway spending. There are some areas where Republicans are willing to spend. We're willing to spend to build a border wall, willing to fund the military, but we're not willing to just say, let's have a grab bag and everybody gets to throw in what they want. $1.3 trillion is way beyond what it should be, and the Republicans act like they don't have a choice, and they're wringing their hands and they're sweating blood. Well, it's time for them to stand up and say, nope, again, we got elected to do some specific things. Here are the specific things, and if you don't want to vote for it, then we're going to tell the whole country that you thought that killing unborn babies and running up a huge deficit was more important to you than making sure that we had security and border protection.
Governor, let me switch gears, ask you about this crazy photo. Look, I know that as a father, you're incredibly proud of Sarah, your daughter, and she has to deal with constant, everyday pushback from skeptics. Jim Carrey painted this. The backlash is incredible after posting this photo. It's believed to be Sarah Huckabee Sanders, your daughter. Last week, he tweeted out this picture with a caption that reads, "This is the portrait of a so-called Christian whose only purpose in life is to lie for the wicked monstrous." So the actor has drawn pictures criticizing President Trump as well. What do you say, Governor?
Well, first of all, I think as far as his political leanings, we're going to just mark him down as undecided. He just hasn't been that clear of where he stands. But if he wants to paint some ridiculous-looking cartoons, that's what political cartoonists do. That's one thing. I'm not as so much offended by that. I think it's unfair and unflattering. But my daughter's a beautiful person inside and out. Here's what I find and take offense to. It is the fact that he calls her a so-called Christian and accuses her of lies without listing what those lies are. And to question someone's faith, you don't hear him talk about a so-called Muslim or a so-called Jew or a so-called Buddhist. I think it's just something that the left takes in vogue, is to be able to attack people of the Christian faith and somehow believe that they become judge and jury as if they are the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost when it comes to determining the authenticity of a person's faith. That's what I find most offensive.
So
he doesn't
rude,
know my daughter,
You're
doesn't
right.
know her faith. That's offensive.